Hello, everyone. Dancing is good for longevity, so it'd be good for everyone to do a little stretch. I would actually invite you to be present in your body and take 2 breaths. It's going to help me as well because I'm anxious. I've been told to imagine the audience naked. So yeah, that helps a bit. I think we need the slides to be up because otherwise I'm going to start dancing. And poetry, yeah. I have the clicker, but it only works on my laptop. I'm gonna talk about a way to really coordinate at the next level, to really get our shit together, because this is important. We are dying. It's not just for us personally, but 110,000 people are dying every day. Just a reminder, right? You guys all are aware and present with these kinds of things, but still, the rest of the world isn't with us. And I think that's a failure on us, failure of coordination for us, right? Why don't we go to the level of a moonshot, right? Like Apollo project and Los Alamos, right? These big projects, they didn't just happen, right? There were people that were advocating, and somehow, eventually, they ended up to that level. So coordination, I think, is key. You've heard a lot about various projects on how to tackle this problem of aging, right? And you've also heard higher level how to get more funding, how to make more of these projects happen. I want to talk even at more meta, right? About the human coordination. I need each and every one of you in the audience to do something. The least you can do, first thing you can do is get off your phone. Multitasking doesn't work, right? I want to make this interactive. And I want to try something new, get some feedback, help me improve how we coordinate as a community. So if you hear something that resonates with you, shout, dude. Yeah? If you hear something that bores you, shout, boring. And if you don't get something, tell me, shout, I don't get it. I'll make this quick. Presentation section is going to be quick, and I want to make it interactive and leave time for a lot of questions, not just questions, but back and forth interactive. So everyone says health is the most important thing, right? But it's kind of abstract. Thank you. For me, I'm kind of lucky to have been present to a lot of health issues. I spent a lot of time in hospitals, a lot of surgeries growing up, and so I've been aware of how it feels like. I have all these joint pains and so on, and most young people don't really think about degeneration as they grow old, right? But luckily, I am present to this idea. Also, my father now has cancer. I really do not accept, at least my mother, not making it. We need 10, 20 years max to achieve bringing aging under medical control. And we're not doing so well, right? So with the Apollo project, we had the US president make a speech by the end of the decade, right? It just took less than a decade to put people on the moon. It was literally a moonshot with a significant percentage of US GDP. With longevity, we just have some niche conferences. We have some people getting up on stage and shouting into a bit of a void, in my opinion. There's 0 proven interventions to work in humans. It takes 10 to 20 years to approve a new drug, to bring a new drug to market. Yeah? Is this acceptable? Like, what the fuck? Is this normal? Am I crazy? Why do we just accept that it takes this long? 10, 20 years is the max we need to solve aging, not for one drug. We need the feedback loop to be much faster. And we need a way to get from from that poor dog to be an industry that is a lot more forceful, a lot more effective, a lot more coordinated, with more cohesion. Of course, we do want diversity, we do want to disagree, we want to celebrate dissent. We don't want to all think like a swarm, we don't want groupthink, but we do want to act like a swarm. And we want to reward people that help us get closer to the truth, help us overcome our biases, really stay true to the scientific method. Science is full of problems. We have 80% of the time spent of top researchers, right, is spent on getting writing grants, bureaucratic, slow, annoying grants, and it's very risk averse. We use taxes, get public funding into some bureaucrats to decide things that are going to be iterative, maybe make a little bit of an improvement over decades, centuries, and so on. This is not okay. Right? We need to think big. We need to take risks. There's this huge overlap between crypto and longevity. I think it's because people are willing to dream big and fund a lot of the more crazy ideas. Even, for example, cryonics, right? It's received mostly crypto funding. I think a lot of the longevity funding right now is coming from crypto. You've seen top key opinion leaders like Vitalik Buterin, founder of Ethereum, Balaji Srinivasan, Brian Armstrong, even Hal Finney, one of the founding members of the Bitcoin network, is now at Alcor, cryopreserved. Right? There's this overlap of forward thinkers. Both crypto and longevity have been dismissed by the incumbents. It makes a lot of sense. And so we can fix a lot of that with... I'm not the US president. We don't have the kind of centralized top-down approach of like, okay, let's get more funding. We can try, but also bottom-up, we can allow anyone to contribute funding to longevity with things like VitaDAO, right? Using crypto tokens. We can allow anyone to contribute their skills and do something. Replication is also another issue in traditional science. You don't have incentives to publish results or to replicate science. There's this hyper-competitive environment with perverse incentives to become a professor and publish in pairs and so on. And then when it comes to communication, we're really bad at it, right? And also the public cannot access the science that they fund, right? You have paywalls and so on. So maybe put everything you know about how things are getting done in science apart and think about a decentralized way, DeSci. Who's heard of DeSci? Thank you. So we have this new method, right, to have a permissionless way of funding, executing, and publishing science. Pretty simple. Right, so anyone can contribute funding.
That I get it.
Yes, and then that funding goes to fund science. Then that science needs to get done. Right? Usually you need permission to execute. You need access to expensive machinery, labs, and so on. You need credentials in academia. Well, what if we could enable science execution to be done more like AWS, right? You can, from your laptop, right, execute. Run experiments on machines that are not used in labs, and so on. And maybe exchange tokens, right, instead of pay money. I use my machine, I use your machine, and so on for the time that is not used. And then publishing, right? In AI right now, things are moving so fast. People are not waiting for peer review. It's 6 to 9 months waiting for peer review, also during COVID, and for AI, doesn't make sense. So everything is about preprints and Twitter and comments, and it's just a new way of peer review. And as a founding member of VitaDAO, I know that a big community of people can get together and actually get shit done, actually scalably coordinate a lot of funding to a lot of projects. We funded millions of dollars into dozens of projects with a lot of people, right? Funding early stage research and then advancing it enough to spin it out into new companies and just allowing anyone to contribute capital or work. And then one of our projects became ready to go into humans. And then the status quo of clinical trials is not acceptable. So realize that regulation is a huge bottleneck. There's this invisible graveyard of people dying and suffering a lot, waiting for medicine. Even GLP-1 inhibitors. You all know, you've all heard about Ozempic, semaglutide, right? This weight loss miracle drug. Well, it was delayed. It was discovered, these GLP-1 inhibitors were discovered in the early 90s. And it actually turns out it decreases cardiovascular risk by 20%. That is millions of lives every year that could have been saved with just these drugs, right, that were delayed by decades. And then super cool example in during the HIV epidemic. There's a movie about it. I'll tell you about it soon. So the HIV community got together and tried to coordinate to create or to bring and distribute drugs in a way past just around the FDA. FDA cracked down. Eventually, there was this drug that was approved in Canada and Europe, and then it was approved in the US 7 years later. And then the FDA said, success. We are now saving 10,000 lives a year. Great, you just admitted you killed almost 100,000 people by waiting 7 years longer than Canada, Europe, and other countries. And there's so many examples like this. Animal insulin was delayed by 30 years in the US versus Canada. Human insulin. And there's a lot of side effects from animal insulin. We need balance. We can't say, let's put the speed limit to 4 miles an hour because people are going to die. Yes, people are going to die also if you can't get to the hospital in time and you can't have enough economic activity to lift people up from poverty and so on. So I do think that it's nice to try to use your voice and reform the current system. Maybe 80% of our efforts should be on that. I want to also consider 20% of our efforts on exit. Imagine if you wanted to create PCs and it was only IBM, you couldn't create a new company, right? And you had to convince the people at IBM that PCs are the new way to go. You'd have to lobby and so on. That is the current system today. It's much better to start Apple, Microsoft, and show, not tell, right? The same way. How about we start a new system, a sandbox, where we can try a new way and then the world can watch and incorporate what works. And as a community, we would have a lot of leverage. Right? When we live together in a new city or potentially create a new state, we have our own governance, bottom up, by the people, for the people. Who are they to tell us what we can and cannot do to our bodies, right? That seems authoritarian urges on us, right? We in a decentralized way, can decide what laws and regulations we use. And you've heard a little bit about that with Prospera. I want to also recommend Dallas Buyers Club, this movie that I was talking about, showing how the HIV community got together. I think through movies, we actually inspire people, and not through rational words. And so Jellyfish DAO is another project I started. A community, instead of funding research, it funds movies about longevity, showing longevity in a positive light. So I encourage you all to join that, jellyfishdao.org. So what if we could create an environment where we could make new drugs in 4 months instead of 10 plus years, spending on the order of millions instead of billions for every new drug? And new cities have been built before to fix crisis with science. But starting a new city or a new state is hard. How do you do that? Well, Balaji Srinivasan came with this idea of creating cloud countries, network states, where you have people all over the world in an online community, kind of like VitaDAO, right, would be an online community. And then what if you would crowdfund territory and then gain diplomatic recognition? But still there's a gap. How do you get from online to diplomatic recognition? Well, we thought that this is a graph reproduced by Vitalik at Zuzalu. we thought, let's go one order of magnitude farther than co-living spaces and conferences in both number of people and duration, and try out an experiment. So we gathered for 2 months, initiated by Vitalik, in Montenegro. We were in a close, yet in close proximity in an isolated location, kind of exploring how would it look like to live together with like-minded people. We also had healthy rituals, cold plunging, sauna, exercising together, tracking our biomarkers, eating healthy food. And then at Vitalia as well, much more focused on this one commandment of making death optional in a special jurisdiction, Prospera, the first district, where we co-lived and co-worked initially 2 months, and then we extended that. And now I'm exploring a lot of other locations where we could create such longevity cities. Zanzibar, I just came back from Zanzibar directly here. It's amazing. It's kind of far, but the government is very open-minded. There's already a special jurisdiction there as well that nobody's using, so we're exploring that. Montenegro, we're still in touch with the government. One of our residents from Zuzalu became Prime Minister of Montenegro, and that's exciting, kind of slow, but we're seeing how that goes. And of course, Roatan is still a great location potential. So, and then with a long list, there's a pop-up city, Zoo Village, Georgia, coming up in Georgia, talking to many other countries, and also Indian reservations, and so on. So this is a new thing I'm trying out. I want every one of you to join the swarm, so that each one can do at least something, apart from, I know a lot of you are doing research or your own project, right? But then at a higher level, to coordinate, at least retweet something when we, as a community, decide that we want to make something viral, a trending hashtag or something like that. We will post it here, a social amplification method. Then another level after that is attending some meetups, maybe joining a longevity hub in every city. Even we're discussing one in Dublin, right? And every major city should have a place where you can go as a member and have healthy food available, co-work, maybe co-live, exercise together, and so on. And then for those that are ready after a short residency, then they can move to the frontier, to places like Roatan, Zanzibar, Montenegro, and so on. And also, another level is maybe changing your career. So I highly recommend coming up in August 21st to 25th in Nevada City, California, right before Burning Man in Nevada. Nevada City, California, though. LBF, I highly recommend for those of you that want to change your career, if you need a step-by-step guide and like-minded people to kind of help you break into this field, then I highly recommend that. So please scan these QR codes, and let's interact a little bit. Let's discuss what is holding you back, what do you think are the bottlenecks generally, how can we do a better job at coordinating and creating the future, exiting the status quo, creating the future that we want, to bring our field to the level of coordination that Apollo and Los Alamos and others had. Thank you. I have like 13 minutes per question.
Yeah, great job. You can tell what I meant by energetic and exuberant. Definitely a man after my own heart. Not scared to say fuck on stage. The LBF is one of the things that I'm most proud of having been able to help at the beginning. I seed funded it basically, and
Yes.
if I had to describe Laurence in 5 words, it would be he's a one-man roving LBF. You do a great job on that kind of thing. So questions.
Gennady.
Microphone, yeah. There you go, over there first.
And again, we can do back and forth. Don't worry about just a simple question. You can also discuss.
Yes, thank you. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on a rather foundational matter, essentially in societal dynamics, and that is, do you think that external changes, for instance, technological changes or social changes, drive changes in laws and legal frameworks, or is it the other way around, that, for instance, a particular say, restrictive legal or regulatory framework can impede a beneficial change to the extent that we could have a technology ready to go, but its adoption could be delayed by years or decades because of a poor legal or regulatory framework?
I think it can be both, but usually it's probably social change first and then regulatory change, because why would they change the status quo if there isn't pressure? Sometimes it's not so visible. Sometimes it is, grassroots, huge movement, like the ACT UP movement with the HIV, right? Please, FDA, change the rules, allow us to take these drugs, experimental, because we're dying, Sometimes it's more in the background. An example is Hillary Clinton and Obama. In the first election, they were against gay marriage, and then kind of the society winds changed, Overton window changed, and in the second election, they were all pro-gay marriage, right? So a lot of the times, politicians are actually followers, not leaders, right? They follow what the trend is. But yeah, it is a bit of a loop for sure. And while I'm talking mostly about reform, right, how do you change the regulations in a specific area, that needs a lot of grassroots and a lot of lobbying, a lot of political power. But if you just exit, my hope is you can just, like you start a new company, like you start a new currency, the same way start a new jurisdiction or city.
Over there.
Thank you very much for your talk. No, I know VitaDAO, and I own a few coins. No, and I think the project it's an interesting project, but I also think that the majority don't get what it is. No, and you are presenting all the perspective, what's coming out. No, but what I'm missing is at the beginning a short description that for example, the Vita is derived from the Ether, no? Maybe it's not wrong, no? And then you can participate, no, in your Discord channel, no? And you can buy coins, no? And you get rewarded by coins, no? And that at the beginning, and then from that on, the creating. But I thought, no, what it is, what's about, and yes, I think that's very important, because the majority don't know what that is. I think so. This is a big part knows it, but most of the don't know it.
Yeah, this is my intention. You're playing right into my trap. Yes. So I give an overview of a lot of projects I'm involved with, right? And then hopefully people are asking about the ones that they're most interested in. So with VitaDAO, you can think of it more as a company builder, but it just allows anyone to contribute funding, to contribute skills, right? So then for that, we do need blockchain. We do need permissionless ways to not have all these sort of bottlenecks. And see, also it's hard to explain in so many ways because of the existing regulations, right?
Sure.
But there is blockchain enables anyone to participate, whereas the current system doesn't. How do you if you wanted to get involved into a VC fund, into some startups, into company builders like Cambrian and Rejuveron and so on, how would you? Not anyone can, right? With something like VitaDAO, you can. Right? So it's
Everyone
just funding early stage research.
It's a democratic organization, no?
It is more democratic.
Everybody owns a part of the company, no?
Not everyone owns a part of the company, because it's you're buying these tokens. What they allow is governance. And you govern what kind of research we fund, what do we do with that, how we spin it out, and then actually more than that, I can go into a lot of details. Some of our projects are ready to be spun out. Some of them into companies, some of them even make their own token, their own DAO. So you've heard about VitaDAO before. I didn't want to go too much into detail, but just quickly, one example is VitaFast, this autophagy project at the Viktor Korolchuk lab in Newcastle University. It had its own token about a year ago. It created its own token, and now it's tradable. It was like 1,700% oversubscribed when we launched it, and anyone can buy that token. Then about 2 weeks ago, we launched VitaRNA, Artan Bio, a spin-out company, is just also now its own token, and more to come up. And some of the projects we funded are just companies. Some of them are also tokens.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Question over here. Where's the microphone? Oh, there it is, yeah.
All right, so I'm a hospitalist doctor. When patients are really sick and have to be hospitalized, I take care of them. Like, probably a third of my practice is people getting hurt by drugs and therapeutics. And nothing is worse than cancer and chemotherapy. Like, people come in almost dead, having been treated, and it's not great sometimes. And so, like, you know, like we talked about CAR T therapy a few days ago, and like the EU pulling off like a dozen therapies. That's because they were really expensive. They were hurting as many people as they were helping, maybe more, and that's a bad deal. And it only takes one person in front of you as a doctor who really gets hurt by something for you to be like, fuck, like I really hurt this person and this is bad. And what I've noticed with scientists in this conference is a lot of hype, a lot of like big statements about how good these products are gonna be or how exciting, and almost nothing ever about side effects, problems, the bad things that are happening. And I think like the whole publication system kind of discourages that. And so like, you know, we really can't control regulators, but we can control ourselves and what we do and how we behave. And I think in some ways we slow this process down by not talking about these problems, because if you don't talk about problems, they don't get solved. And when they get found in, you know, a later phase of a clinical trial when they could have been brought up earlier, but you didn't want to say it because you're trying to raise money or you know, you don't want to downplay or, you know, upplay the negatives, it's a problem. So, I mean, you know, a lot of finger pointing at regulators, and there is a reason for those people. I agree that there could be a lot better systems in place. But like, you know, do you guys agree, or do you agree that we're a big part of the problem in slowing this process down and how we communicate and talk about or not really I'm the guy who tries to use these things right now, but your technologies.
Thank you. Yeah, very important to talk about these things. We do need better medicine, more effective, but also safer. And a lot of times we're using technology like chemotherapy from decades ago that is just really poison, right? We can do much better than that. Also, I hear a lot of this argument of let's put the speed limit at 4 miles an hour because people are dying, you know? So we do have to be cognizant of the harms in delay, and why can't we innovate better? Why are these drugs, why are the incentives to wait until later? Because you spend all these billions, right? And you have this sunk cost fallacy. If you could innovate more, faster, maybe we would, again, just choose the ones that are better. We would more easily, faster, see what works and what not. And yes, allow people to take the risk if they want to, for the benefit of humanity. Just like with COVID, for example, we allowed doctors to take the risk and with a new virus, take care of patients. They were heroes. A lot of them died, right? But when it came to making a challenge trial, so with COVID, we had Warp Speed, Operation Warp Speed. We made a new vaccine in 8 months, right? Instead of the usual 15 years. We could have done it in 4 months if we allowed challenge trials. Yes, probably a lot of people might have died just the way a lot of doctors died by taking that risk, but they would have been heroes, and millions of lives would have been saved, and not millions would have died, right? Maybe dozens would have died. So, you know, it is a tough thing to talk about, potential deaths, and the regulators are good people. The incentives are such that things are going to be more bureaucratic and slow and safer, right? And I understand that incentive mechanism, but I think we shouldn't let it get in the way. And I think it's fine. Most of the world is in that paradigm. Let's try a new one in a sandbox, right? With people opting in. You know, there was Kenneth Scott was on stage and he was like, "Let me try it. I'm old, right? Let me try the thing because I'm dying otherwise." Right? So you just got to be cognizant of, some people want to have that freedom.
And I guess my point was also like maybe more that like we could improve this process by being more honest Because that would allow more
incentives, yes.
Yeah.
Publish negative results, reward that, right? If we're in a city where we are even just social status, right, for finding problems. Actually, the scientific method is not about trying to validate your experiment or your drug that works or your paper that gets published, your results. It's actually about trying to find holes, right? It's thinking in some paradigms and then making explanations that are hard to vary and then trying to falsify those, right? You're trying to get closer to truth. You're trying to overcome biases in science. And biology is really fucking disappointing. It's not really very scientific. I love physics. I look at biotech and biology. I'm very disappointed.
All right. Thanks so much, Laurence.
On that.